All right, so first we just want to welcome everyone to the first Proco Podcast. Today we're going to discuss some midterm elections. And we have two special guests today, Mr. Campbell and Mr. North. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for spending some time with us today.
Thanks for being here, guys.
You're welcome.
It's my honor.
Honor and a privilege and an event.
Thank you.
All right, so last night was the midterm elections. The Democrats took over the House.
And then the Republicans got the Senate.
So, what are your guys' first reactions off of that? And how do you think that the results of this election will affect the 2020 presidential?
Were you guys expecting it for the Democrats to take the House?
I think everybody was expecting that. That's pretty typical in a midterm election for the party out of power to become part of a party in part power in the House. The Senate was expected.
The Senate map was firmly against the Democrats, with a lot of Democrats in Trump states being up for re-election and very few Republicans in Democratic states being up for re-election. So it wasn't as big of the wave election as a lot of Democrats would have hoped for. It's also not some big win, as I'm sure our president will say it is. It's more or less like a push. Like, Americans want divided government to some degree. Granted, between the sporadic states that were up in the Senate and the gerrymandered House districts in most states, including our own, it's not a real full American vote. It's very divided.
Yeah, I think one thing too is that 8% victory margin, if you just count up popular votes, shows that Democrats probably had pretty significant gains, but will they keep until 2020? Who knows?
Yeah, that was the next question. Do you guys think it's going to affect the 2020 presidential race?
I think it'll mostly just continue the thing that's going where Trump is Trump, and some people like it, some people don't. It's kind of a polarizing figure. And the House will just become another vehicle by which to kind of be a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party ideas, and also to criticize and potentially, drag down the president and try and muddy the waters a little bit for people.
I think two things. One, it really showed the people in suburban districts that were Republicans who didn't necessarily agree with Trump. Most of them lost. So the message to Republicans is more or less all in on Trump, and the message to Democrats is, one, they did win a lot of suburban districts and other districts that voted for Trump, so there is an opportunity for a larger electoral gain in the electoral college. It's also an opportunity for Democrats to have a national message because of the government being totally controlled by Republicans over the last 2 years. It seemed like they were searching for a national voice. Obama, like most former presidents, is reticent to come out and speak against Trump. He kind of did towards the end, but they didn't have a national platform which voters and supporters could access. On the flip side, a big message by Republicans was anti-Nancy Pelosi. Unless something drastic happens, she will be the speaker again. She is a lightning rod for what middle America Republicans point to as the problem with the Democratic Party, a coastal elite who is extremely liberal, and she polls very poorly across the United States. So I think there's a chance for Democrats to go too far into trying to investigate Trump and his appointees, and reinforcing this image of Democrats being elitists, trying to get back at Trump and his more conservative supporters.
Last year, in APUSH in Mr. Campbell's class, we talked about throughout history how the election map changed in terms of the alignment of the different areas with different parties. Do you think that could possibly change in the near future again?
I wouldn't predict it to change. I think 2016 was a bit of an aberration. I think just some of these specific issues with the candidates and with just the demographics at play in 2016 caused the Midwest to kind of swing towards the Republican Party a little bit, but I mean, last night's results show them swinging even more massively back. And I mean, unless there's a significant shakeup over the next 2 years, which there probably won't be, I mean, barring something unforeseen, the Midwest will probably continue to swing back towards the Democrats. And I think some swing states, which will probably have more turnout in a general election versus a midterm election like we just had, you're going to see a pretty significant shift probably back to the Democrats, in which case the map will probably resettle back to how it was before, with the Democrats picking up a couple extra swing states. But things could change.
I think just the general demographic shifts within our country from Rust Belt to Sun Belt.
What is Rust Belt?
Rust Belt would be the states going from New Jersey west all the way to Minnesota, Wisconsin. So former industrial World War II industrial production, which is now aging, and a lot of those people, including Mr. Campbell and I, moving from Midwestern states to southern states like North Carolina. And so you will see a swing of states like Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona shifting more Democratic, and a slow shift to more conservative, but a smaller population in areas like Missouri, Ohio, Michigan. So that's a long-term trend. And also the focus of immigration, especially from Central American nations, is in the southern states, which trending, if it continues to trend as it does, a more democratic shift. And we saw Beto O'Rourke do much better than anyone thought he could in Texas. So that is something, maybe not in 2020, but in 2024 you might see a shift in Texas politics, more moderate. The other kind of side note is we do have voting issues and voting access issues both directions. So felons were not allowed to vote ever in Florida after their felony, even after they finished their probation. They passed an amendment to allow all felons to vote in Florida. And if we remember history, a lot of elections have come down to Florida. And so 1 million extra voters in Florida could make a huge difference. And then, of course, in states like North Carolina, where we passed another voter ID law. So voting access and the fight over voting access, I think, will play a large part into the run-up of 2020.
So typically youth civic engagement falls flat on high schoolers but rises in college students. Do you guys think this is because the community of college is just more educational, or do you think it's because high schoolers just are unable to vote, so they don't pay attention to what's happening in current politics?
I think access is a huge part. So in general, college students are more upwardly mobile. There's also probably a polling place close by their university because it's probably a larger area by population. High schools are spread out throughout the country in rural and urban areas. So for instance, in this election, because of the polarization, we did see a huge uptick in young people voting. As comparison, especially to 2014. So in North Carolina, we're over 50% voter turnout, and in 2014, we're about 35%. So I think one positive out of the polarization and harsh rhetoric is that young people feel the need to be more civically engaged, both due to issues with the Second Amendment and gun rights, but also the rhetoric with immigration and minorities.
Should we more intensely educate high schoolers on what's happening?
I was going to ask that too. Like, what can high school students do like us to be more informed?
I think one access point that was lost on our generation that you guys have advantage of is through social media, your messages, and your just general status and where you are, when you are, and what you're doing is become easily organized and spread throughout your networks. So I think just the overall culture of voting and seeing it as a positive is something that Mr. Campbell and I couldn't necessarily do when we were young. And my first vote was in the 2000 election, but I probably told 5 people I voted. Whereas a lot of young people today could tell a couple hundred people the second they voted and show the I voted sticker, which it seems kind of corny, but I mean, we are in a lot of ways sheeple. You know, we do like to follow each other around, and if you get the critical mass in a positive direction, I think it would make a more representative government than we have now.
Social media really controls everything when you think about it.
Not me.
It controls me. I love it. I want to. In fact, I've gone 5 minutes without tweeting, and it's starting to hurt.
On the flipper.
All right, and we're gonna take a break. Mr. Campbell's gonna take a tweet break.
I'm gonna tweet.
All right, so just to kind of end the podcast, we got a couple rapid fire questions for both of you.
Rapid
fire.
I got rapid fire answers.
All right, so if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Potatoes.
Why?
They have skin.
I like tacos because you can put anything in a taco and it tastes good.
Tacos and
That's fair
potatoes.
enough.
Potato taco.
Potato taco. If there was a movie about your life, what actor would play you?
Meryl Streep.
I agree.
Snoop Dogg.
All right, the last one. If you could travel anywhere right now, where would you go?
To a podcasting session with Tyler and Peyton.
Oh yeah.
I would love it. Could we do this for like another hour?
I would go to Australia because it's about to be summer there and it's about to be winter here.
Are you saying the Earth is getting warmer? Are you trying to get political?
The Earth is flat.
Right.
There we go.
But we do have two hemispheres, so I like summer.
That's not true.